Good afternoon, everyone. We are down here broadcasting live from Moses Lake inside the Moses Lake Irrigation and Rehabilitation District office. This is the second time we've been down here this week. And we've got a couple big things that they're going to be talking about this afternoon. The first, of course, is a report that is coming in from an HR consulting firm, Larry Boone. He has spent some time interviewing employees, talking with the MLIRD board members. And to give you some background on that, Larry Boone was actually the consulting firm that was hired out of Bellingham to help out with the port district, the port of Moses Lake, when there was some legal issues and they had to go through and figure out for the purpose of a lawsuit brought by one of the former employees, what was going on. The purpose for what Larry Boone is doing for the MLIRD is to, long story short, see what recommendations he can bring to the board to help the entire, not just the board, but employees, help everyone function better. And he was actually recommended by the new attorney, Mr. Moberg, who first worked with Mr. Boone at the port. Mr. Moberg is an attorney who is on retainer for the Port of Moses Lake. So, in a nutshell, that's going to be the first part of what is going to be covered today. I just learned that there were at least two issues. There might be a third issue that was tabled last Tuesday when we were here. And those items are going to be brought back up during the course of today's meeting. One of which is the recommended site for the mobile home trailer, and the other is the approval of minutes from 4 previous meetings. Now, joining me live from the studio is Kelly Ryan, not only serving as our technical producer, but we've got him live on the line with us. Good afternoon, Kelly.
Good afternoon, Cody. How you doing today? It's exciting down here.
Nice sunny day.
Nice sunny day outside, yes. Not a good day to be stuck inside an office there, eh?
For the second time this week.
Well, it's going to be an interesting meeting. I find myself, I keep saying that, but what we're hearing in between the lines, some of the dialogue today will be, some of the results coming back from this HR consultant. But is that the only issues that are going to be discussed in this meeting?
That I don't know. And I'm not even sure that we're going to have an agenda for the items that were tabled from last Tuesday. Evidently there are some recommendations that he is going to give the MLIRD board members. Have no idea what that's going to be. And if you've ever sat through a long 3-4 hour meeting and been bored to death, it's kind of the exact opposite of what we've seen with the MLIRD meetings in the past. And I don't want to say entertaining, because it's not. It's some very important issues, but I guess the question of productivity for not just a single person, but the board and all of the employees is what has been evaluated.
That's a perfect way of putting it. These are extremely serious issues. And I think that's why people feel so passionate about it. Again, going back on the election, the election was so close. The one that Mick just won on by just barely 200 votes. And people are down there, and what's interesting is that the crowds were huge at the beginning, but they're starting to wane a little bit, at least based on kind of the last couple meetings worth. And when we talk with some of those folks, it's just like they're throwing their hands up saying, we give up. I mean, they don't feel like they can do anything about it. Now, there are some public meetings coming up here with Janaea Holmquist, our senator, along with our state representative, Judy Warnick, and I'm not sure if Bill Hinkle will be there. But this will allow for folks to be able to at least vocalize some of this frustration. And I know another big issue that popped up from the last meeting. Up to point, as Mick has been chairman, he's been allowing some dialogue during the meeting from the public, but most certainly the ability to be able to speak about it at the 3-quarter mark. And the reason that was kind of important is that it allowed for people to see what was going on during that meeting, and then they could comment their frustrations or their thumbs up, hey, this looks great. But because now of the way that last meeting was conducted, that public session happens right at the beginning. You've got a very vague agenda that's just been handed off to the public. So you don't really know what's coming, which is what happened. And that's what I think really frustrated people, is that they then didn't say anything during the public session, or that's not the right way of saying it, but anyway, the public speaking part of it. And then all of a sudden got into the meeting, is like, holy cow, these things are happening. And then they raised their hands, and Mick said nobody's allowed to speak. That's it. You had your moment. You're done now. Which means now you've got to write these notes, get to the end of the next 4 weeks until the next meeting to be able to even say anything about it. And I don't think the public has any way, or maybe you know this, Code, is there any public speaking session in this meeting today?
I would guess not. And you're absolutely right. There were some upset people from last Tuesday's meeting. And it wasn't just that they couldn't provide comments, but they weren't able to they weren't allowed to ask questions. And with the way the agenda was put together, it was at the very top, and you were supposed to sign up if you had something to say, or you had a question, either about items that were on the agenda or non-agenda items. And it wasn't really brought up at the beginning of the meeting. It was just kind of skipped over. I guess no one signed up on those sheets. So the board went right over it, and then it was a very big surprise. And at the end of the night, some upset people.
Yeah, that's what we saw here too, Cody, in the control room. It's tough. Like I say, you've got two diametric sides, I think, to the way that folks want to see this lake managed. You've got a group that believes in what the staff has been doing. They think that that Kurt and his team have brought a lot of professionalism to the table and to the solution here. And then you've got this other, opposite side that thinks practically everything they do is devious, that there's been money wasted, that, somehow or another they're wanting to dredge over, working in the dry, as Mick Hansen and his group, Rich Archer, want to do. And frankly, I think everyone wants to be able to work in the dry. That's the common sense thing. But the other side of the spectrum is we should be doing something, and what we have the permits to do is to continue with the dredging. And despite some misinformation, or at least in my opinion, and again, this is editorializing, but the amount of dirt, as they put it, that was produced last summer or last year is really not it's no determining to what can be done. You got to remember, they only were able to run the dredge at 30%. You had to deal with that 4 weeks, 5-week window, 6-week window that somebody sabotaged the boat to try to sink it. And, so the whole runtime wasn't even, they didn't even have enough time to do that. And on top of that, they had a lot of prep stuff that had to be prepared and done during the same time period. So this was the year to really go in and start moving dirt. And there is another issue. How do you get that water, that sledge, that the dirt and water that gets pumped off the dredge into that holding pond? They've got to figure out a way to separate that water faster, which the staff is already underway of doing. And practically, as I understand it, that plan is almost adopted, which would allow them to pump that water out sooner, which would allow then the dehydration to happen sooner, so that you could, then you pull the dry residual dirt from that pond, and you continue the process. But it's not that anybody's saying, hey, let's stop the we'd rather do this than that. I think what people are saying, let's continue doing the dredge while we get the other permits in place to go do the work in the dry. And if we get it, oh, man, I think everybody's all thumbs up about it. Let's go for it. But that's part of it. There's also tactics in how people want to approach this stuff, and et cetera. But go ahead, Cody.
Well, yeah, and there's all kinds of it's a lot of red tape right now, not knowing what they can do, what they can't do. But the general feeling is that nothing's being done right now, and it's one of the big points of contention, not just from the people who are elected, the board members, the new board members within the irrigation district, but you know, it affects the economy. For a lot of people in Moses Lake and businesses, recreation brings a lot of money to the entire Grant County.
That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. For Moses Lake, as Debbie Martinez said the other night, the director of the Chamber of Commerce of Moses, that's our asset. I mean, we've got to protect that asset. We need to do everything we can to make sure that we continue the cleanup process, that we continue working through that lake, and start somewhere and continue that process of turning this lake into what we all envision it still can be. And we've come a long ways. Again, I mean, I give credit, and some may say this is editorializing, but I think the awards they've won, I think the state audits that they have, that have come in with flying colors, passing, I give a lot of this credit to Kurt and how he's run this organization and the stuff that they've stepped forward to do. And that includes, the spraying, insect, weed control, a lot of things that they have implemented into the system here that makes Moses Lake and continues Moses Lake on this path of getting closer to what we envision the lake should be.
And yeah, you summed it up. A lot of people feel Kurt has done some really wonderful things, and he has kind of brought a little bit of calm to the table too, which over the past few months has been kind of a welcome refresher. But yeah, the people don't realize how much work goes into keeping Moses Lake a viable recreation point for a lot of people for the west side and even out of state coming to enjoy the summertime months.
That's right. But again, some will argue what the district's doing is irrelative, that it's all about the water, which Mick used the term flushing. I think one of the ex-commissioners or directors said, no, that we call that dilution. But there is, Army Corps of Engineers have opened up water. I'm not the right person to speak to exactly where that's coming through, but we are getting more water that's going through Moses Lake. The good side of that, of course, is that we have fresh water coming into the system. Of course, the downhill side or the downside of that is that it's bringing additional dirt and stuff along the way. So again, that's part of what, there was very specific plans on where the dredge dug last year. And they dug out that as, again, this is what I've been told, or at least what I understand, those are catches. So as that stuff comes in, it will fall into those holes that were dredged so that they can come back then and continue the cleanup process versus allowing that stuff to continue down the path and continue filling in the lake. So the water's a good thing, but we still need to make sure we have those management tools in there that will allow us to continue dredging out that material. But dredging's not the only solution. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. We need those other things. But if it's a big step to see a bulldozer go driving across that habitat and backhoes and big trucks and all of that. One drop of oil, one drop of hydraulic fluid into a habitat, even driving over it, the type of wheels. I mean, it's a big step to see all of these agencies who really don't have a dog in the fight. I mean, for them, why do it versus if they allow you to do it, they're at risk because somebody's going to come back and say, well, why did you do that? So I think it's an uphill hill. I think everybody keeps their fingers crossed that there's some success to this, but it's not like this is, Mick Hansen, the chairman, I don't want to say he's claiming, but the feeling, and at least what feels like it's being spun out there, is that this is the first time we've ever tried this. That's as I understand and as I've been told by Kurt and by others, that's not accurate. They have tried to get permits to work in the dry. So the plan was, let's get a couple years of good dredging down. Let's keep everybody happy, and then the second part of that will be then to say, okay, now can we add on? So that's going to be, Mick's saying, let's bring this part of it down. And in fact, all of the dredging has been stopped. That money's been pulled out of the budget and now has been placed for other areas, such as buying the mobile home or buying this big equipment that, again, we don't have the permits, yet to go do. So that, again, comes back to the crowd and why you see such separations. I see you got Mick Hansen walked right behind you there.
Yes, we're starting to have people arrive.
Well, I see that you got 14 minutes, Coach. So if you would like, we can cut to break and then come back and do more dialogue as they are preparing for a 4 o'clock live meeting.
That sounds great, and I'll try and catch up with Mick here just for a second to see if there's anything else that's going to be on the agenda for today.
All right, that sounds great, Cody. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching iFIBERONE. We've got, in a special presentation, we have interrupted our regularly scheduled program. We apologize, this was something of a last minute, but we do have the technology to do it. So we've got our Cody Johnson down there on site at the MLIRD, where he will be the meeting is to start at 4, so we'll be broadcasting that until it's completed. And if we have enough time, we will go ahead and do a post show on the heel of that and see if we can't pull some interviews. So stay tuned. We will be right back.
For all those who don't know, Broadway Bar and Grill, located at 302 West Broadway, is the spot to be every night of the week. Monday through Wednesday night karaoke, Thursday night ladies, it's all for you. Drink specials and a DJ. Friday night live music, blues, rock to heavy metal, and on Saturday nights, come get down with Big Daddy DJ Live and the official Corona party at Broadway Bar and Grill, 302 West Broadway in Moses Lake. Don't forget, we have great food, open breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Hi, I'm Mark Fancher at Caldwell Banker Tomlinson Ranch and Home. It's still a good time to sell your home, provided you have the right agent. In today's market, it's more important than ever to have the right agent help you sell your home. And at Caldwell Banker Tomlinson Ranch and Home, you'll find sales associates who know how to market your home, help you with the right price, and maximize its curb appeal. Your home is probably the most important asset. Call Caldwell Banker Tomlinson Ranch and Home at 509-766-0300 today.
So you have a problem. You see, you have this company that wants to sell its, products and services into the entire market of the Columbia Basin. So how do you do that? Now, there's a whole new way. iFIBER's Channel 1 advertising. Channel 1 reaches the entire Columbia Basin. Yes, that includes areas like Moses Lake, Ephrata, Quincy, Soap Lake, Rural City, Grand Coulee, Electric City, Coulee City, Heartline, Mattawa, Desert Air, Warden, Wilson Creek, East Wenatchee, Bridgeport, and Waterville. All from one source. So to advertise on Channel 1, contact sales at iFIBER.tv or call us at 509-754-2600. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching the MLIRD, who has a meeting that's starting here in about 9 minutes. This is an interruption of our regularly scheduled programming. We apologize for anybody that was in the middle of anything there. We hope we made a clean cut. But we've got Cody Johnson in the field down there, and this was kind of a last-minute thing that was put together and then that we found out about. So we interrupted programming. We are bringing this to you live. What you're looking at is the public room there at the MLIRD. Tonight, and Cody, are you there?
I am here, yes.
As we understand, we're going to be getting a bit of a review from, in fact, the meeting just expanded. I think we're going to be going till 6:30, 7 o'clock, but can you give us a rundown of what you just heard?
Yeah, I did have a chance to talk with the chairman, Mick Hansen, and he's anticipating the report from the HR consulting firm of Larry Boone to last about 2 hours. Then they're going to take some time and cover some items that were tabled from the last meeting. And don't know how many of those items we've got on our list, but they're going to try and get us out by 6:30 or 7 is what I've heard.
Well, we should have known. Anytime it comes to an MLIRD meeting, you never quite know, is it going to go? We had one short. The rest of them have definitely gone very long. So the subject matters, as I understand it, is the big part of this is the HR. What were some of the other items? Can you elaborate a little more as to what happens in that second part of the meeting?
Yes, one of the items that was tabled was the placement of the mobile home. That and this was the mobile home was being placed for someone to kind of cover the area around the lake. So that's one item. The other item was the approval of the minutes. We have 4 meetings that lots of pages of minutes that need to be approved. Mr. Covey and Mr. Archer didn't have a chance to review the minutes in Tuesday's meeting, so they did table that, and it sounds like they're going to approve those today. Evidently, there's a few other items that are going to be discussed, and I'm not sure what those are.
Okay. So they have tabled, again, because it sounds like the directors did not get a chance to go through, and like you say, there was a lot. There was, so far, I think they've only been submitted and they've approved, 2-1 vote. So Rich Archer, Mick Hansen approved the first set of meetings once Mick had redacted a piece of that, about a third of it, as we've been told. We haven't, iFIBERONE hasn't had a chance to actually get copies of those yet. We are going to be making public requests for a lot of this stuff so that we have it on record and we can also be able to show that to the audience. But beyond that, so you got February's meeting, you've got the 2 meetings in March, you got the meeting in April, and of course then this week's last Tuesday's meeting, all of which those minutes have not been approved. So I believe that they were submitted at the beginning of the meeting last week for all the meetings other than, of course, that meeting. And there was no chance to review all of this. So that's where I think Mr. Covey put up an objection that said, let's stand by. I want to be able to review this before I'm approving anything. And it sounds like they still haven't had a full chance to go through all of that.
Yes, and the meetings in question, February 14th, March 13th, March 27th, and April 10th.
Okay. And the second thing then was on the mobile home. Can you, sorry, I must have missed the more specifics. That was the site where they were going to make that decision today on what site to start the work on?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Yeah,
there were 3 sites that were proposed by Kurt Carpenter, and he did recommend, just for a lower cost, mostly, he did recommend Site C, and I know we don't have a map up to show you this, but and there were some questions. The board wanted a chance to go out and actually physically walk the area
okay.
before they voted on it.
If memory serves again, there were, like you said, 3 sites. Site A, B, and C was how they were named. Site A, I think, is what Mr. Archer and Mr. Hansen wanted, and then staff had recommended 2 other sites, and we're leaning more towards that Site C. Again, we're just using names here. We have no graphics to go along with this to really demonstrate where these areas are. But you know, I believe that what was talked about in that last board meeting was that they were to go out individually. I think they were saying to go out together, then that was changed. Now go out individually to look at these sites. So maybe that's also part of that hasn't happened yet. So that's why I put this on hold. But the rest of it, they're going to go move forward. So is this a continued meeting? Do you know, Cody, from the agenda?
That's what I understand.
Now,
although there's no agenda for today.
okay, I think, well, although we'll get the classification once I'm sure Mick, you know, swings that gavel, which is in about 3 minutes. I could have swore that last meeting was adjourned. So if that's the case, this may be a special meeting. On all meetings, anytime you have more than one of the board members together, that's a quorum. That denotes that is a meeting. So partially maybe that's why they also had to go out to the park individually. Or they could have conducted a special meeting just to go out and look at those sites, I guess. But anyway, we are going to be covering this here with iFIBERONE. You are watching iFIBERONE. If you're watching this on TV and you need to hit the road, you don't have to miss any of the action with iFIBER TV service. Just go to iFIBERONE.com. So it's iFIBERONE or just iFIBER and the number 1.com. And just hit that black box where it says live television. There's a triangle right there, and our technology will play back on any device, whether it's an iPhone, iPad, you know, Android, you know, any smart device, and you can still continue watching the meeting as it happens and unfolds. We're about 2 minutes up, Cody. You see anything else you'd like to talk about here?
Well, you know, I should probably bring up, just as a point of reminder, the mobile home is, the idea of placing a mobile home out there is for what they call, I think, a park ranger.
Yeah, that's
to be
right.
able to kind of provide some kind of security for the areas around the lake.
Well, now, that's also part of the contention here. What is the role? I don't think anybody's actually sat there and started to find out what does this individual get. And I think they've gone through even different names for it. I think now the current one is, and I say they, again, it's 2-1. This is Mick Hansen, Rich Archer, 4, and Ron has voted against this. And again, a large part is because nobody knows. We're hearing that this is going to pay for itself in 2 years or less. That's what Mick Hansen has stated, I would maybe 6 or 7 times over the series of meetings. But yet nobody really, you know, when we've asked, in fact, even iFIBER has requested copies of those, of a projection or anything that shows how this saves money. Apparently Mick's response to that was, well, where is it at? Well, it's in my head. So we've asked to have him put something to paper. He has stated that he needs 60 days to do that. I think tonight, if you get a chance, Cody, you might ask him if he's had a chance to get that done so that we have something at least in writing that we can see how this pays for itself. Because iFIBERONE has gone out and, well, let's pick it back up. I think we're about ready to go live here in about 20 minutes, Cody. So we are about to go live
That's
here.
a good lead in.
Okay.
That's actually a good lead in for the first part of our meeting with the recommendations from Larry Boone Consulting.
Okay. So if you could, why don't you
Trying
bring
to
up
get clarification.
our boom mic here, Cody, and we'll get ready to go.
Cold water.
I'd take one, please. I'm fine.
I,
No, I got my Gatorade. Unless Cheyenne drinks it all.
See one of yours? Look back at mom.
Larry, this is my daughter Cheyenne.
Hi, Cheyenne.
That's Mr. Boone.
Glad to
Not
meet you.
Daniel Boone, Larry Boone.
So did you just get off school?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did one.
it's not living on the ground.
Good, thanks. What is it?
let's go ahead and start the Mose Lake Irrigation and Rehabilitation meeting, which is a continuation of the May 8th. And I'm going to immediately turn it over to Larry Boone and let him go ahead and make his presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I especially appreciate and commend the board for bringing someone like myself, not necessarily me, but for bringing someone like myself in to say, you know, we're realizing that sometimes the way we interact and the way we conduct business isn't as constructive or as fruitful as it could be, and we'd like to take a look at that. And so I've met with each of you, including council, and interviewed you, and I attended Tuesday's commission meeting, and I've made some observations, and I've heard from each of you. So I think what I'd like to do is just give you some feedback on what I've seen and heard since I've been here. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna give it a frame of reference. So I'm gonna start with some assumptions, and feel free to challenge these assumptions if you choose to. But my assumption is that the board and management are committed to the highest and best use of the district's water resources. Having strategic goals and strategies and practices that ensure that water resources are used to highest and best value. That you subscribe to being an effective and efficient board who delegates to an effective, efficient staff. That you believe in and practice strong and visible business ethics. And that you're committed to earning and deserving the trust and respect of the ratepayers and the community. So the things I'm going to talk about are based on those assumptions, and from my conversations with you, I mean, I believe that that's pretty much where everybody's coming from. It doesn't always, the recipe doesn't always turn out especially well, but that seems to be what your intent and direction is. So, as Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you? because the thing that I find interest in is with the long history the district has and the good work that you've done, each of you, and really believing and wanting to do the right things. Why doesn't it appear that way sometimes? Why does it appear not to be a very well-tuned machine? So I'm going to give you some feedback on some of the things that I observed. It's my belief from my interview that Kurt, the manager, has good knowledge about how to support the board well. I'm not sure he currently does that. I mean, he knows how to do it, and I don't think the reason it's not happening is because he doesn't want to. It's just the way things have been going on for a while. I think there's not the kind of motivation that lets him demonstrate the good skills that he's got in that area. And I asked him a very open question, what do you think is your role in supporting the board? And he told me right now, he knows, he gets it. So I think there's some work to be done there. There's differences. People were elected onto the board. You were elected by people who had different thoughts and ideas about what the water district should do. The people that you listen to and the people who are your constituents still have differences of opinion about what the board should do. And I think a little bit of what has evolved is that you conduct your business with not the kind of respect that the business deserves. And when I say not the kind of respect, I would argue that each of you are in your positions for a reason. Someone put you there. And I think it's incumbent on each person to respect the other person's position. We don't always like each other. And we don't have to always like each other, but who cares? Someone put you in that position, and your fellow directors have an obligation, I think, to respect the position that you're in. So sometimes when things get a little warm and heated, I think it's worthwhile just to step back and say, right now I'm feeling kind of catty about this, but I respect the position that you hold enough. I'm going to show respect for the position that you hold. I don't feel like respecting you very much right now, but I respect the position you're in. I think something worth consideration is to look to council to kind of be the ethics conscience of the organization. You do complex work, and you've got some guidelines for doing that work, but it's like any other policy and guidelines, it doesn't speak to every situation. Some things are gray, and because you're all committed, I think, to good ethics, Kurt, if you think that something's outside of your smell test, you know, I think you've sometimes gone to regulators to try to get them to control, to ensure that the board is exercising with good ethics. I would suggest that you let council serve that role, because even though it's your council, they still have a little bit of an arm's length distance, and they can probably look at it more objectively. But one, you shouldn't be in that position. You shouldn't be in the position of trying to police the people that you report to. It's not fair to you, and it's just not a good practice. So I would suggest that you go to council and say, something's come up, I'm struggling with it, and he can either say, I appreciate that you're struggling with it, but that's your personal opinion, because they have a right to do that. Or he can say, yeah, now that I've heard it, I'm struggling with it some too, and I'll take it up with the board. I think that's a better business approach to the way it happens. When I'm the personnel director in an organization, and there are other people who have line responsibilities that makes them senior people in the organization, I believe in the organization having good ethics relative to human resource practices. And if one of the other directors or VPs is doing something that I just can't be comfortable with, I'm gonna go talk to him about it. I'm gonna say, I'm not comfortable that we as an organization are exercising this practice. And I'm gonna do my best to convince that person that it's not a good practice. If I can't, then I'm gonna say, we have to agree to disagree because I still feel strongly about my point. So I need to tell you that I'm going to your boss. You're welcome to go with me if you'd like, but I think you should tell him your side of the story, and I'll tell him my side of the story, and he can be the decision maker. I think you should use counsel that way. I disagree with you. Have the conversation. Try to make your point. Try to get reason. The problem goes away. If it can't, I can't agree with you. We don't see it the same way. I'm going to go to counsel. You talk to counsel if you like, but we need to resolve it. I think it's a healthier way to get it done. I think there's a tendency, and I'm going to talk about perceptions some, because when it comes to the people that sit in the audience, perception's reality. They don't always understand. They don't always know what you know. They don't always have the same understanding of it that you do. So they come to a meeting, and from what they see, they walk away with a perception of what happened, and that perception is reality in their mind. I think there's a perception, Director Hansen, that you sometimes in your chair role, I think there's the perception that you you got two hats, and one's the chair hat, which is a facilitator hat, but some people perceive that you're wearing like the board boss hat, and I think that's not good for the other directors, and I think it's not good for the people in the audience. So sometimes I suggest, I mean, you're a get things done kind of person. You do it for, for good reason. You want to see results. You feel a lot of responsibility for what happens here, but it's no more your responsibility than it is these other two gentlemen. And I'd suggest to you two gentlemen, if because it's one of the strengths that he brings, I would suggest that when he's wearing that board boss hat, that you present him another hat and say, try this one on because this one fits. I don't know if it fits you better, but it fit us better. I think there could, in keeping with the respect for the position, I think there's a tendency sometimes to want to make a point, or even to be right or prevail on a position, to make the other person's position look bad. I look good, or my position looks good if your position or you don't look good. I've likened to that, if you've ever been to a carnival where they have these little heads that pop up and you can take a stick and beat them down. I don't think it's ever constructive in an organization or a board to try to knock everybody down to a different level, because everybody looks at that level. So my encouragement is make your points factually, intellectually, do good research, and then I'm gonna say that being adversarial is okay. So I'm not one of those touchy-feely HR people that feel that you all gotta cooperate and get along and hug and stuff. But I believe an adversarial role is not only okay, I think it's important to the elected roles that you come to. I think it's important that you ask the hard questions. I think it's important that you challenge each other. That's how you make more good decisions. At the same time, once you've done that, it's important to have collaboration on, okay, now that we've gotten people's opinions, facts, research, knowledge on the table, how do we make an important decision in collaboration with that? And that may mean that you support the position of somebody that thought you were not going to support their position, or vice versa. So I think the guiding principle is collaboration along with challenging each other. That's not the same as disruptive. I have, did you have those? So I'm just going to hand this out because it identifies adversarial collaboration, defines it.
Thank you.
And to some extent, you already do this. I mean, you already challenge each other. You're good at that. But the collaboration is equally important, and that's collaboration between the three board members. It's collaboration between the board and the manager, and collaboration between all of you and the agencies that you deal with, and the community sometimes. So the question for just maybe a little bit of discussion, if there's agreement on what the commitments are kind of at the top of the page, and you're smart people, and I've talked with each of you and spent some time with each of you, and I believe you are, why is it so difficult? I mean, why is working together in a way that is perceived to be a pretty well-honed, why are you not perceived to be on the same page? I think you believe in the same things up above. So you all want to do what's best for your district. You want to have a good infrastructure that lets that happen. So, you know, what are your thoughts about, you know, why is it so difficult?
Strong-willed.
Strong-willed, okay.
Strong-willed. I think we've all got an idea how it should be done. The main big project we have right now, of course, is removing the settlement out in Parker Horn, and that's probably one of the biggest issues we got. And there's two very different ideas on how this should be done. And how do you come to an agreement? I think that at this point in time, we all kind of agree that last year was not really a real productive year as far as how much material we actually dredged out of there. And we're hoping maybe to get permits to where we can give it a try working in the dry. But if that takes too much money or takes too long, or who knows what the obstacle might be there, maybe we'll never get the permits for it. We don't know for positive, and that's something that we can't say for sure until we actually have it in hand. So we're working that direction, and I think that there's a very good chance that we'll actually end up with them. But and I think that once we do end up with them, that the amount of material that we move by working in the dry versus working in the wet is going to, in 2 days' time, probably do what we did all last year,
So are you divided on how it should be done?
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest separation, and why we don't continue doing this, and why we don't continue pouring money into it this year. Last year, we spent a lot of money on it, and this year, if we can get it, the dredge actually needs a lot of work done to it, and we're getting that work done to it. And we talked about testing it when that's all said and done, and I think that's an excellent idea. I think that when we get it running, we haven't had a chance to really discuss this between us, but I was talking with one of the guys here, and he said he'd like to test it, and I think that's an excellent idea, that before the pump is a year old and we haven't put in the water yet, that we do go out there and we do some testing, and we find out that it's going to work better for us, and maybe put it where we're talking about starting a year from then. Getting that done. So I think there's a lot of room for compromise here. If they'll just kind of bear with us, and all of us kind of get on track and do what's best for the constituents out here that are watching us fight and not seeing any other real accomplishment here. But we are, I think we all have our heart in the right spot as far as trying to go out here and get the job done for the taxpayer.
And you say, how do we do it? I mean, the risk in believing in a right way to do things is that when another board member who thinks there's a different right way to do it wants to express their opinion, and I already think I know the right way to do it, I'm gonna be focused on my right way to do it, and when they present theirs, I'm thinking about what's my response gonna be, and I'm gonna leave you something that, that recommends following Stephen Covey's principle of first seek to understand and then to be understood. And that's a very difficult, it's a simple principle, it's very difficult to do, because what it really means is I'm going to put what I think should be done aside. I'm going to listen to you. I'm actively going to listen to you because I care what your opinion is. I care what your thoughts are. I care what your reasoning is. I want to understand where you're coming from. And then, once you've done a good job of that, bring up what you thought was right and compare it to what you've heard. And most of the time, that's going to help you come to some good decisions. We get back to perception. If you do that well, if there's adversarial collaboration, by adversarial, you're advocating what you think is the right thing to do. Or maybe you're advocating what the people you trust and your constituents, maybe you're advocating what they think should be done. But either way, you're taking your best shot at presenting it, you're presenting facts, but then you step aside and listen, and truly listen to the other person, hear what they have to say. And then you have good debate between you. You're probably going to come up with good decisions most of the time. Equally important, the perception of the people sitting in these chairs is going to be one of respect and trust, because they believe you're not there trying to force your agenda down somebody else's throat or their throat, and that there was good research and intelligent dialogue, and that you did challenge each other, and that you don't have some relationship before you sat down at the table that you already know that you two are going to vote for it, because you just shot trust. And so I think you can make a lot of good decisions, and equally important is if you use that process, the community is gonna have a lot of respect. They realize you've got tough decisions to make. They realize that no matter what decision you make, some people aren't gonna like it. But, so I wouldn't burden myself too much with how do we do this, because I'm gonna argue it's complex, but it's not that difficult to arrive at the solution to a problem in a well thought out way.
Larry, if I might add, I agree with what Mick said a moment ago about the compromise issue. And I think that with regard to the dredging and so forth, I think a compromise has been lacking here. To look at the whole picture, 2 applications have been made in previous years to do it in the dry as Mick wants to do, and both have been denied. There was an attempt by former district directors to actually go out in the lake and remove some sediment without a permit, and there was an arrest. So that's the background that I'm referencing my position on. We started the dredge last year, and we didn't get the quantities perhaps that we wanted, but we have now found out that it was because the pump was functioning at only 30%. So with it functioning at 100%, with knowledge and continual training of the staff that's actually operating the dredge, their totals are going to improve. So all I have asked, as my supporters and my constituents have asked me, is why not allow the dredging project to continue this year while Mr. Hansen tries to go ahead for a 3rd time and get this type of permit approved. Now, I think that's a compromise being, okay, we're going to try this other approach, but in the meantime, until that does happen and we get the approval, which took 4 years to get for the dredging project, we'll go ahead and use the dredge because it was cost effective to remove sediment. It was about $250,000 or $60,000 to operate that last year. Not 1-point-something million has been alluded to by others. And so I see that as meeting halfway. But I continue to butt my head against the wall and being told that it's just going to be thrown out, we're not going to do it at all. All the efforts for the last 5 years are for naught at this time, while we go ahead and try to get a permit, which, what if it takes 4 years like the first permit here did? I mean, are we going to continue to let our lakes spoil and go south on us? That's my big concern. And so I've asked the other members of the board here to consider that. You know, let's work in harmony on this issue, but I don't seem to be able to get them to understand my position.
Okay, I'm going to kind of take the middle of the road thing here because I kind of feel half and half to most of these guys. I've been the director probably longer than anybody now, and so I've seen, and I'm the new guy. Honest to God, I am the new guy. Been on for 2.5 years, and I've seen the process that Curtis had to go through, and my hat's off to Curtis. I mean, he's done a great job. Like Mr. Coley said, we made a big mistake as director a few years back by going out there with tractors and getting ourselves in trouble to the point to where it was impossible for Kurt to do it in the dry. And we all agree, I think we all agree that that is the most effective way, is to go out there in the dry and get this thing taken care of in a very short time. That was not available to us because we screwed up. And so now Kurt has gone in and proven to the Department of Wildlife and all the agencies that we can be responsible. We will be responsible. We're going to take this right. We're going to do it right. And so now I think by Kurt doing that, Mr. Hansen is going to be more apt to go back and get this modified to where we can actually do it that way. I think going out and testing the waters, as we're talking about, and putting the dredge in the thing and testing it and see what's going on, because Kurt's come up with a couple of new methods, I would say, deepening the pond, adding different things to get rid of the water a little faster that may improve the dredge. I'm not quite sold on it myself yet, I need to be shown. But I do think that Mr. Hansen going ahead with what his ideas on this thing needs to be done, because in the long run, that's what's really gonna save us the money and the time if we can get that done. And I think that's the way to go. I'm definitely not opposed to testing the waters. I think it's a great idea.
Good meeting. Good meeting, and I, Mr. Hansen, for what's happening here a little bit is just because of my role for this couple hours is that I'm kind of facilitating this process. And boy, if I was, a community member sitting in the audience, I'd be pretty respectful of this process that I just heard. And it really, your role is mine. Your role, you're really the facilitator for good discussion.
You're doing a much better job than I do.
Well, but there's things as a board member that I probably wouldn't do. So, but it's just a good example of how the three of you can be very professional and I'm impressed with the thought that you've given to it and the logic that you have behind it. And if you exercise that for a while and facilitate it well, I'd be real confident that somebody's going to bang the gavel at some point. You're going to make a vote, and it's going to be a good decision.
Well, I think one last thing to make comment on doing the dredging this year is the fact that we do have a big debt that we're looking at, that we have to end up with money to get that taken care of.
Right.
And next year, let's go for it. But this year, we've got to save every penny we possibly can and pay off our debt.
Between the three of us, Mr. Colby brings his expertise with government entities and all that kind of thing. Mr. Hansen brings his expertise with heavy construction. And me, I'm just a Joe Blow kind of guy out here that know the mechanical things and I hope a little common sense. I think between the three of us, we can kick this thing butt. And with Kurt over here, his expertise, he's got things he brings to the table that nobody can deal with. He's an environmentalist. He knows how to build houses for our parks. He's an engineer. There's a lot of things that Kurt brings to this that's totally the man to be. So
I agree with you. I think that respect for the position part is going to be absolutely key as you go forward, and that you're going to look to each other to have this kind of meeting, because Mick's a heavy equipment guy. Guess what his solution is going to look like? You got to respect that. That's one of the strengths that he brings to the position, and
government guy.
Runs a government guy. He's gonna want to have good due process and all that's okay. It makes you different in a healthy way. But what I think has been missing is, rather than respecting your differences and having that and it being okay to have an adversarial role, that that it looks more obstructionist, it looks more combative. So I applaud you for what you're doing right now. This is a great presence, and I think that's the way you'd rather operate.
I think communication is a lot of it, between Kurt and us, and between each other, of course. That's a big thing, and it's because we kind of have a little too much adversarial stuff going on during the meetings that we don't communicate very well in between them, let's say. I think between Kurt and the three of us, we need to talk more to Kurt, and Kurt can relay that back and forth to the other directors so that we can communicate what we need to do, because Kurt's down there every day. He sees what's going on. if Kurt was to call me and say, hey, this is happening, I'm gonna go down there and look. As I know the other directors would. And so then we have 4 different eyes looking at the same problem, and between the 4 of us, communicating back and forth with Kurt, we're gonna fix it.
Well, I mean, let's assume that Kurt keeps you up to date on what's going on, and that you have a meeting agenda, and that somebody has contacted each of you individually to discuss what the meeting agenda should be, and that you're prepped. You're not biased, but you're prepped on what the issues are, what you can do to make sure you feel prepared when you get here. Then you're going to sit down and have a conversation like this, and everybody's been prepared. Everybody knows what the agenda is. The public knows what the agenda is, and you can restrict public comment as you need to have a time-efficient meeting. There's no reason to have 3 and 4 hour meetings. And then you can include public comment on the things that are significant that you need public comment. You don't have the time to talk about everything the public wants to talk about. This is not the forum for that. Some things should be tabled, and you should have a separate meeting with the public and have staff present facts and see what can. So,
Larry, if I might add one thing here, lip service is something that I personally detest. I don't deal well with it. And Mick made a very valid comment a minute ago about these charges that were assessed to people that weren't legitimately in the district, and so there's a reimbursement issue that we're involved with. And I would understand his position there, and I would support it if he didn't find other things to spend quite a bit of money on and direct money to, rather than look at this reimbursement issue. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand that.
You know, so what's being said and what's being done are 2 different things, and that's hard for me to comprehend sometimes.
And what I'm suggesting is that an adversarial, the collaborative role is okay. So the adversarial part is, Mr. Hansen, I understand the point that you just made. I understand your argument, and quite frankly, I can even support your argument to some extent. I just have to be honest with you that your argument is better made if it's a concern about resources, and I'm a little bit confused because in another case you seem to be wanting to spend resources, and in this point you want to be conserving resources, so we're getting pretty close except for that point, and maybe we want to discuss it right now, but I just need you to know where I'm coming from. That's a very different adversarial debate than I got you. And what I think happens is there's too many I got yous. Yeah, you make that comment, but look at what you did. I mean, it's like,
I can see what Mr. Cody's saying, but we have two different deals here. We've got the dredge, which is one process of what we have to do here, and the other process is our park. And we can't really, we have one pot to work with. I mean, we both have to deal with one money to do with both. Right now, we're working on the negative side of the dredge because of the, well, actually 3 things, because we've got to give our tax money thing too, that we got returns, is a third part. So in order to take that, we have to take all three of these together, but we can't let our park just die. We have to look ahead a long ways away and try to make that happen as we're going. And so in order for that to happen, we have to put a little money there. We have to put money there to make that work. But on the other hand, with the dredging going on, we need to pull back a little bit there and try to save some money and stop that. But because we have to make a balance. And so, I mean, I think that's where we're kind of struggling a little bit.
That's a good place to struggle. And you got two issues. One is, what's the right thing to do? What do we believe we need to do? And the second issue is, how do we finance it? It may be the right thing to do operationally, but is it the right thing to do financially? And there's probably going to be less dissension about that issue than there is about whether it's the right thing to do. Because you have a budget, you know what the budget is, and you do have you do have a limited amount of dollars to spend. So. I'm just going to be direct, and then I'll apologize for it, but
There's no need for apology.
But
That's why we hired you, be direct.
But Mick, I think you in the past would have impeded that discussion we just had. I think you would have been invested enough in what your thoughts were that I think that discussion, which was very good and valuable discussion, probably wouldn't have happened because we'd have heard what Mick thinks.
I can still tell what I think, but
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, I mean, I've got input
Right.
as to why, if we were talking about the mobile home, why we do that. And we've, part of my campaign was that we're gonna keep that park open longer. And by putting a mobile home down there and having a 24-hour residence, we figure we can do that. So I made my point. So
Yeah. Your point's equally valuable. But as long as you're the chair, your primary role is to facilitate a meeting, and then your secondary role is yours is one of three inputs. And I think sometimes your input becomes the primary role, and so not picking on you, I'm just making the observation, and you got broad enough shoulders to.
I'd be better off if I kept my mouth shut a little more often. Is what you're saying. I will take that as good advice.
So in keeping with that, I'll wind down and not say more than I need to. I came up, and you can throw these away once I leave, but I came up with some concepts that I thought would be helpful, and these are kind of reminders. Practice adversarial collaboration. First seek to understand, then to be understood. Demonstrate respect for the other person's position. Don't take pot shots. Create the real perception, not just a perception, but the reality and the perception of being organized in the way you conduct your business. It's minutes, it's staff support, it's all those things. Build community trust. Focus on the positives, because my limited exposure is that you do a lot better work than it appears, because there's enough jabs and pokes and pot shots that it comes across as these are all the things that are wrong, these are things you don't do, and this is. And instead of that, work together, be organized, and focus on the positive, because you have every right to. You do a lot of good stuff. And use counsel as kind of the ethical conscience.
Well, we've just brought it along, so gonna be a real asset to us, I feel.
Leave it from this way. Thank you. I got broad shoulders too. But you might want to set it, right? You might want to set it right there.
Open big pipe.
And refer to it sometimes.
Where's my two hats?
So I think you have other business to conduct during this time, and I appreciate your patience with me, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Well, you have any other follow-up on this? There is just pretty much what your climax is, or not? I mean, I didn't know if you had anything else that you put in writing, or is this verbal?
I can kind of summarize what I verbalized.
I'm not saying it's necessary, I just didn't know if you did or not.
As far as I'm concerned,
Okay.
my task is complete unless you tell me that it's not.
I don't see any reason to have to put it in writing.
Okay.
We did have one thing that we were talking about at the meeting, and I think that we wanted to kind of get your opinion with it. And that was on my advisory group. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with Harold on that, and Harold was gonna possibly talk with you, I'm not sure. But as to the resolution that we have on it, the 2012-03, whether we have to have it go through all the open meeting laws and all that stuff or not, or whether that's something that
that's something that I probably want to grab before it leaves. We opened a conversation about the advisory board, the resolution that suggested that the board was a sub-agency or answered to all three board members. And the resolution included an interpretation that was part of the Open Meetings Act, or you would apply to them as an open meetings, as if they were an individual that was subject to an Open Meetings Act. The Open Meetings Act deals with elected officials meeting. What I have started the conversation on is to discuss each director has every right to seek advice, whether it's 1 or 7 people, a board, or simply a mentor. What I wanted to discuss with Larry, and we're not all the way through that, was I think it's a bad idea to suggest that we are anointing non-elected officials with the mantra of subject to Open Meetings Act. I mean, we're just declaring you're an elected official, even though one or all of you may seek advice. My recommendation is that if the chairman wants to seek out expertise, he should have the right to do that, but it shouldn't make it subject to the other 2 directors. If Mr. Covey wants to seek out advice, he should be able to seek that out without creating a subdivision underneath the subdivision. I do want Larry's opinion, and I probably will ask him to provide that to us in writing. Okay. But my recommendation, as I said today, is that we should look at our resolution, understand that legal disagrees with trying to anoint any non-elected group subject to a statutory provision. I would ask that the board revisit that in terms of, is that a delegation of the board, or is it simply the chairman's desire to get technical advice? If it is, then I think you should I'm not sure why you need a resolution for that, but certainly I'm opposed to trying to create another public board out of people who may not wish to have their privacy changed or modified. I think the cameras are important in a public meeting. some of us may not want to have that be part of our lives. So I think what you've done is put a mantle on individuals that want to give you technical support that they may not
They're
appreciate.
asking no compensation for it.
No, it's not the money, but,
Yeah,
but you're
yeah,
asking
that's
them
right.
to be subject to Open Meeting Act, to a
Yeah.
statutory provision that the elected officials are. And I'm not sure that's fair to someone who wants to give advice to one director. If you're going to have them report to the board, then I think that's a different answer. And then I think they should come in and report to the board at a public meeting.
Could you,
So-
maybe between you and Larry, talk that over, and by next meeting, come back and
Actually, I talked to him today before he gets away so that we can have something to you tomorrow and not keep it going. I mean, there's no reason for council not to give you an answer.
Yeah, great.
So I won't let him leave town.
Okay.
without it.
Don't leave town without it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and go back into our old business that we tabled. It's a long time then. And you're more welcome to stay here, Larry, if you'd like to take off, that's fine. But we're going to be discussing the site of the mobile home, and we've been discussing site A, B, and C. I think, Ron, I don't know if you've had a chance to go back out there and take a look at it, but you have visited all three sites, I hope.
You asked me before the meeting and I told you I was out.
Yeah, I want to make sure you got all three sites.
And I was out there yesterday too. Went out, Mike took me on a tour and kind of showed me all three sites too. So, if it's okay, I'd like to start out.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of went up, it was blowing like crazy yesterday too. It was a horrible day out there. It was bad. And so Mike met me up on top of the hill. I was kind of standing up there looking around, and the wind's blowing like crazy, and it's like horrible up there. And he kind of explained to me how everything works up there with the power and the sewer and all that stuff, and how that kind of seemed to be a good site. And I looked down across the valley there, and you know, you really can see the park. The only problem I have with it is the distance from site C down to the park where it is, because if something is to happen, in my feeling, is it needs to be we need to get the right way. I went down, Mike took me down to site A after that, and we stood out there and looked. I kind of looked out at the lake, and I couldn't help but notice when I'm looking out there that you really couldn't see much of the park. It was tough. The wind was still blowing like crazy in that one area, and I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. So then I went over, Mike took me over to site B, and we talked about that one. And that's kind of a medium thing. It has some sewer available. It has power close by. It'd be reasonable for us to put it there. I noticed that down in that area there, it was a lot less windy. If I was to put a motor home and have a choice between the three, I'd put it down there. Because in my opinion, it was a lot more comfortable. I mean, it was out of the wind. You could see down there, you could see the park, you could see the whole park from one end to the other. If we decide later on to do the camping thing, which would be to the west of Site B, it puts you right smack in the middle. I mean, it's an awesome spot for that. And so trying to look down the you know, in 10 years from now, I'm thinking that Site B is my preference.
Ron?
Go ahead.
Well, my preference would be site A or site B. I prefer, I think, site A, but it's gonna take quite a bit of earthwork to get it leveled, get it dropped down, get it to where it's a level site. Then after you get that done, it's gonna take some work. Let's see, where did that go? Yeah, I go there. This would be the area right here that the mobile home will be sitting in. And when you're sitting here and you look down, you've got the ramp for the fishermen and for the boats. Let's see here, just go back here. But you've got this point that kind of sticks out here, and that alone actually restricts the view that you've got here. You can go along and we could cut. No, not there. It'd be here. Cut some of this point off right here, and that would open it up where you can see a lot better. But here again, it would take some more dirt work. So my vote is either site A or site B. I do not like site C, pretty much for the same reason of what Rich is saying here. It's remote and it's out of the park, and it would be great for a night watching them to live up there to watch the machinery, but that's not what the idea of this is. This is meant for being a park ranger, being down in the bottom. If we do use site B rather than site A, there is the wash house, your bathrooms that are laying along here. And when I stood up there and looked, if you line up at the ridge, you stand here and look at the ridge right on top of that bathroom, and then look straight down through there, you can see pretty good. If you get over too close, to the edge right here, then you're looking into these trees too much and you can't see. But if you line up with that top of that roof, right with that roof, line it up with the roof that you're talking on the mobile home and just look right straight down there, there is pretty good vision there, and that site is already leveled, already pretty well compacted, and I don't think we'd have a settlement problem there. So I would go with site A or site B, but I would not go with site C.
Well, first of all, let me say that this is kind of a compromise again, because I was not in support of purchasing the mobile home at this time. I felt like it was premature and that we could have waited, but that's neither here nor there at this point. We do have it, so how can we best utilize it? We have a 125-acre park here, which goes way over here and over this way and down to the lake. And so let's look at site A. Standing right there, which I did this morning with Kurt, for not my first time, I've been out there before, but standing right here where the mobile home would be, and considering the excavation that still has to be done to lower it down to grade, because of the fact that the Jersey barriers are along here and this parking area, you cannot see anything but the restroom roof, and then over the top of that you can see about this much of the park. Here's the lake now, and you can see this much of the park over to here, and you cannot see the boat ramp down here or where the fishermen are launching their boats. So site A, in my opinion, just doesn't meet the need at all. Site B is an improvement over A, but how much of an improvement? Well, you can, from site B, as I look back this direction, the view is impaired in this part of the park. You can't see this part. You can see out here, and if you're in the right place, you can see down as far as the boat ramp, but if you're in the wrong place, you can't, as Mick has alluded to. There's the cost factor of bringing utilities and infrastructure from up in this area down the hill to this site. And it's as costly to do that as it is to bring infrastructure down to site A. So I went up to site C. Now, site C sets up high enough to where you can see not only all of the park that's currently developed, but you can see the rest of the 125 acres that we have out here that we will continue to develop. And we've talked about turning it into overnight camping. Now that overnight camping is going to be somewhere in this area and possibly over here. As a secondary use for this ranger station, or whatever it's to be called, should this not prove to be financially feasible, which we have not been shown yet that it's going to be, this mobile unit setting up here at least could be used at some future time as the office for campsite check-in. People coming in the entrance here could come in. You'd need a large parking area for people checking in and out, and then they could go down and find their campsite wherever that would be located. Secondly, infrastructure is already there. It's in place, and it's a minimal amount as far as hookup is concerned. And thirdly, you have an unobstructed view of all 125 acres in the park. And for that reason, I support site C above site A or B.
Any other?
Well, you know, it is a good view up there. I just don't agree with it. I think it's just too far away from the park itself. I think if we're gonna use it for what we're kind of wanting to use it for, it needs to be right down next to the park. I know there is already quite a bit of stuff down there, so it's gonna be a lot cheaper to do B than it is A. May not be quite as cheap as C, but I think B is the place to be. I think it's the way to go. I really do.
Well, Rich, I think according to what the figures that we've been given by Kurt, it's going to cost about the same for site A or B.
Well,
To bring,
not quite.
well, let me ask her, yes or no, is that?
Yeah, it is because of the increased cost of the water, length of the service is gonna be.
No, is now the toilet, the restroom facility stuff down, there already is a sewer system already in down that area, right?
No, there's a drain field that serves the property and that upper tank, but we aren't approved to hook to that yet, so we may have to put in a whole, we might be able to just do a tank and hook to that drain field with a backflow valve and a pump, or we may have to put in a whole design a whole new system with a new drain field and everything. We don't know that at this point.
Where is the water, how close is the water gonna be there by the time you get? I know where you're coming down into it, but aren't you bringing water pretty well back to that location?
No,
And
no.
tying into the,
Water will run, main will come down around here,
right?
and it'll end right in here for now. Then there'll be a T that comes off and runs right down here. And there'll be a hydrant set there, and then the 4-inch will come across to this point to serve the bathrooms.
Okay, so you're getting pretty.
We're talking 50, 60 yards then, right from site B.
Well, we'll have to run it all along this side of this road, so we're not cutting asphalt. There's a sleeve right here, crossing, that comes across, so you're gonna have probably $2,000.
Now, why
In-
couldn't we come right directly from the park over to it?
Cause you'd be cutting asphalt,
Once?
then you'd really be
Well, now,
increasing the cost.
where are you gonna cut, oh, you don't have a pipe underground in through there, what you're saying?
We have pipe here to serve the bathrooms, and we have pipe here crossing the road right here.
What I'm saying is, if we go directly from the bathroom area
That's all asphalt.
across there, I see what you're saying.
And the sewer that runs from the bathrooms runs diagonally across here at a very shallow.
So it'd be least expensive for us to run along top of the road there and then drop across it.
Yeah, this is just digging and pipe. There's no asphalt, there's a sleeve
And drop
there.
it across right there.
And that'd be easier than coming down the hill, straight down to that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm all saying, being said and done, I'm still thinking site B is the way to
Well,
go.
might I address this issue that you've continued to bring up about access from the park? The idea of having a park ranger in any park that I've ever been to, because that park ranger has a house somewhere, and yet that's not where he's going to be during his 8-hour shift or during the 24 hours. He's going to have some duties to do in the park, and he's going to be down and about doing those duties. So he's going to be observed by campers and park attendees and fishermen down in this area. If it were necessary to reach the park ranger, we could, if you were more comfortable with this, we could put in some type of a phone service that would, or intercom phone that would reach up here. So you could run over, pick the phone up and make the call if park ranger were in site C. Or once again, it takes a matter of 30 seconds to drive from this point to this point. And I think that with considering all factors, not just the current status of the park, but considering the fact that we can't lock this off very well here, and we have people then coming into the park and accessing the park without actually seeing a sign-in place for campers. So up here, they would be directed into the park ranger's office and sign into the park. and then go ahead and go to their campsite, wherever that might be. And once again, the only place that you have good visual acuity over the entire park is from this location. So I think we could address that one issue that is of concern to you, Rich, with like I say, just an intercom that would go up there. I mean, it could be a wireless intercom. It could be handled quite easily.
I don't know, I'm still old school kind of guy. I think it should be down the bottom. I mean, honest to gosh, it's, anything that I've ever seen as far as deterring thefts and damage and all that kind of stuff generally comes from proximity. The guy, people coming back and forth know that he's living down there. I mean, the fact is, at nighttime when it's dark down in that thing, people can run around that park and up on top of it, you're never going to see them. If you're down the bottom, we've had vandalism where they've actually taken motorcycles and run up down that road and tore it up. I'm thinking, you know, I'm just thinking Site B is still the way to go. And back when I was sitting down there yesterday and looking at it, with the weather blowing like crazy and everything, it was just a lot nicer down there. It was a lot more comfortable.
Could we get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we put our mobile home on Site B.
I will second that. It's been moved and seconded that we put the mobile home on Site B. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
No. Do we have someone taking minutes here?
It's being recorded. So. I think there's only about two things that we needed to take care of here, and that was the mobile home and the minutes. I'd like to, I don't know if all of you had a chance to read the minutes?
You know, I still, it's okay, Tom?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the minute, the furthest back minutes, the ones that was like the big old huge page long.
That would be the February minutes.
February minutes.
Would be the last long ones that we have.
I'd like to see Julie get those down to at least 10 pages. You know, if she can get it down to 10 pages where it's not so cumbersome to try to get through it, I'd be willing to go with that, but right now I'm still opposed to that one. As far as the other 2 minutes, I've read through those, or the other ones that we've done, I'm okay with them.
That would be the March 13th, March 7th, and April 10th.
Yeah, so I took those on last night, read through them, and they were easy to navigate, made sense to me, so.
So that would be the February 14th that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, that's the top one, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's it, sure.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, this is just too much. I think Julie can condense us down to 10 pages. I'd be happy with it. And right now, we're at that form of 60 pages, so I'd like to make a motion that have Julie condense us down to 10 pages. This would be the February 14th.
Same size print.
Well, somewhere close. I mean,
Okay.
it's nice. I can almost read it without my glasses, but
Okay.
10 pages would be way more acceptable. Need a second, I guess.
Yeah, we haven't got a second yet, but Ron, you have a,
I think we need the second.
well, we need a second. I'm asking if you want to make a second. If not, then I will second it. I will second it. It's open for discussion. It would be limited to 10 pages.
Maker of the motion.
I think that we ought to do it. I mean, 10 pages is my opinion. I mean, right now, we're looking at 3 or 4 pages. I don't see any reason why we can't get us down to 10 pages. Okay, so I'd like to I made my motion. I think we should
Second.
Well, you asked for discussion.
Yeah.
So you have the first option.
Right.
Second has the next option, then it's open to the rest.
Okay, go ahead.
They're done, they're completed. I see no reason to make any change in it. They're very succinct, they're very to the point. I can understand everything that happened at the meeting by reading those. So I don't know that it's necessary to have any more time spent on those. I think they should be filed as is.
59 pages, so that'd be a matter taking 6 pages and making it into 1 page, then basically.
Well, and the other point I need to make here is Julie's no longer the secretary to the board, so it's not her responsibility.
This,
Do we need to have our new
this
secretary do that?
I don't know that she would be
actually,
required.
Jeannie, you're actually the one that took the minutes on this one, and actually went
Do you want my opinion?
Sure.
Just file it and move on and let Kelly do it the way you want her to do it. And just move on.
Would you rather?
It's indexed. If somebody needs to go back and research something, they can go to the index, find the page, find the motion that they're looking for, and just move forward. That's just my,
Oh, I know, I know how much time you've got in on it, but it's, when you try and find a motion, and you try and
it's right
find.
there in the index, and all you have to do
No,
is
this
turn
one
to that
doesn't even
page.
have an index that I seen,
Well,
but maybe.
it's there, son. She's got it
Yeah,
indexed.
that's the problem, I mean, when I look through this.
It's indexed, and you can just go to the motion you want, it's there, turn to that page.
Well,
But
we
move
could,
forward.
the information, is that word for word, the way the whole, that appears to, it appears to be, I mean, that month does seem to be word for word. Okay, that's what I thought.
It's pretty close.
That's a
It is
transcript.
awful close.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, when I see
But I would
things like
just
it
move
says, why
forward.
is that?
Let
It
Kelly
says
do
that,
it your
you know,
way
blah,
and-
blah, blah.
Let it go.
Okay, well, you've got a motion on the floor, and I seconded it. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion opposed?
No.
Okay. All right. So we will see if we can get that condensed before we approve it.
We just need to have, sound like Julie's not gonna be able to do that for us, so we just have our new secretary.
Yeah, maybe we can have her go through there and sort it out. Okay.
Can I make a comment on something?
Yeah.
On the minutes? The new ones say discussion held. That's it, discussion held. There was something that I had to go back and look from the 80s, 90s. And if there had not been, if it had just said discussion held, if there wasn't the detail in there, it would have cost the district a lot of money. It will cost the district a lot of money.
I understand, but we have.
I know what you're saying about these, but in the upcoming minutes, there has to be a little bit more than just discussion held. There has to be some of the opinions, because I had to go back and find an opinion that was stated in a meeting.
But you gotta remember
And
that was-
it's a financial
Yeah.
burden to this district if I didn't find that.
Well, that was before we were recording everything.
But we wouldn't have known, I mean, I was able to go find that date, went right to it, and the opinion was there, the discussion, and it's, I think you need a little bit more than just
Okay,
discussion
well,
held.
Point well made. We can
Yeah.
maybe, if there's something that's very pertinent to it, I think
Yeah.
that, maybe we can make sure that they do.
Because there are gonna be legal issues come up, and you're gonna want to know what the
Yeah.
opinions are.
You can always go back to the recording, but,
Yeah.
if there's something there that you say is pertinent to it. But let's go ahead and see if we can get that condensed down. Do we have a motion to approve the other minutes, which would be the, March 13th, March 27th, and April 10th?
Ron, you wanna make a motion on them?
Well, there's some corrections that have to be made, so I would have to show the corrections. Okay, let's look at March 13th. Dredge repairs. Well, let me first reiterate what Jeannie just said. For the most part, these minutes told me nothing. The fact that there were some very important points brought up under certain agenda items, those should have been included in the minutes. To say discussion was held left just zero as far as I was concerned. And so there's got to be some a judgment call made as far as the secretary of the board is concerned to include in the minutes those important issues that are vital to the district's function. And we have it overdone here and we have it underdone here. So there's got to be something in between that will work better than either of these, okay? That's my position. We talk about dredge repairs on page 2. I've got a question mark. There was a recommendation made, and it just said discussion was held. There was no motion. Don't know what happened. Don't know if it was approved or denied. There was a thing about Parker Horn telemetry. Again, discussion held. It was recommended, but don't know what happened. So there was no indication. There was a motion. There was, I don't know. There was nothing there.
Okay, so did we come to determination as to what was actually done?
There was no motion on either one of these two.
Well, there should have.
We actually added the dredge repair into the budget, and that's where we took care of that when the budget was approved.
Okay, then it should have stated that.
There was an amendment, but it should have stated.
It should have stated that. It just said the recommendation was to amend.
Okay, well, that's
Don't
what
know
it
if don't know if it happened, and that's what I'm asking.
Okay, let's
You know.
put
So then we should include or add to that the budget was amended as a result of this discussion, right?
I agree, all right.
Okay.
So I might go ahead and write that in there. We'll go back to and have her add that to it.
Okay. Same thing on the telemetry issue. I don't know what happened. Do you remember?
I think one of the issue was the fact that we were gonna get him more information, so that he could go back and make a bid on his own, right? The guy that, Mr. Jones?
I don't know that this was. I don't know that this was Mike guy, the Mike Brown guy. Smith, I mean, yeah.
I'm not sure what that
Okay.
had to do with it, was him or we were discussing.
I think he was the one that was really interested in there, so I'm pretty sure it was him.
Well, there was other discussion. I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was about that portion or if it was the board discussing. I don't, there's not enough there for me.
Okay, here was an issue that was very important as far as I was concerned on page 3 when we talk about unopened bank statements from the bank. I had mentioned, and because of the fact that we had a governance policy in place at that time, it had not yet been suspended, I mentioned that micromanagement was not appropriate here, that we should allow our administrative assistants to continue to handle the bank statements as she had done in the past. And again, it just says discussion held. There was no point made of any of the things that I mentioned with regard to why I took the position I did on this matter. And so it leaves it up to, well, why could we vote no? I don't know. So you just move on, There's got to be something in detail that kind of lays this out a little bit better. And then the last one, and this is just wrong. Let's see, on the last page, under executive session, Chairman Hansen explained the board would be conducting as a guide executive session, blah, blah, blah. Noted, Director Kobe left the executive session at 9:55. That's wrong. I did not leave the executive session. The executive session was adjourned. We were to reconvene in open session here. And because of the fact that I was not going to participate in signing of the checks, because once again, we still had a governance policy stating that Julie was supposed to be doing that. I did not stay for that purpose because, as I've now said in every meeting so far, and I asked Kelly to be sure and put it down, that I'm excusing myself because I choose not to participate in what I consider to be an illegal activity of the board at this time. And she would write it down, but it's not in any of these minutes. And that kind of bothered me because I specifically have asked at every meeting that that be included.
Yeah.
So again, the minutes are poorly done as far as I'm concerned, and they don't give us a lot to rely on.
But she is correct here. The executive session started at 9:40, ended at 10. You left at 9:55.
I left.
You were not here when we called it back to order.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Didn't you understand that? I was
It's an executive session until you call it back to order again. And you were not here at that time.
I I can understand, is that okay with Tom? Yeah. I can understand, you know, that you don't want to participate in that part of it because you don't agree with it. But honestly, I mean, once the meeting is over, it's called, it's ended, right?
Pardon me?
When a meeting is ended, I mean, the gavel drops, that's the end of the meeting.
Correct.
So if we leave before that, then.
I did not leave the executive session. The executive session was concluded. That's what I said. And we moved back in here.
So,
So,
let's move on. You want that as a correction to the minutes?
absolutely, that should be stated on all of them, wherever you and Mr. Archer were signing checks.
Okay. You want to make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections?
I can do that. Mr. Covey's added, actually, wants us to add a few comments to it. I would agree to that. So I would agree to adding the comments of Mr. Covey and then accepting the minutes. Does that make sense?
Second.
Okay. So the minutes of March 13th, March 27th, April 10th will be approved as corrected. With this vote. Everybody in favor of that?
Aye.
All say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor. I think that pretty well takes care of anything that we scheduled to talk about at this meeting. And
I have one issue. We were discussing the engineering, and I made a comment, and Kurt, you need to help me here. The bidding statute allows authority up to 300,000. The resolution reduces that. What I didn't understand, because I haven't seen the resolutions, you know, we were going to get all those for me, and I haven't got the resolutions. What is the district's policy with regards to when you go to public bidding?
There hasn't really been any standing policy, it's just been a board, basically direction.
So is there a resolution that causes the directors to go to resolution to amount under 300? Have we set a policy as a resolution? Okay, so I wasn't sure. My comment about do you need to have a public bid to the engineer was based upon, did you have a resolution that says, even though you have statutory authority, we're reducing it for a conservative or policy reason? What I'm hearing, Kurt, is that the board doesn't have that resolution in place, so maybe we're discussing.
Yes.
So I misspoke the other night based upon what I heard and hadn't had an opportunity to read with regard to your resolutions. But I do think it's worth having conversation on. The theory is this: the state says we give our board the right to go out individually or set our own way of doing purchasing or getting contracts. If they're above this amount, the statute requires the public bidding process. Conservative boards will put that at a lower figure and say, you know, we just feel once it gets above 50,000, 100,000, we want to use the public bidding structure. I think I look to Kurt to address that because I think it's a valid.
do you know what the legal limits are at this time, Harold?
300, am I right on that? Anything under 300 doesn't require going to public bid. There are a lot of agencies that choose to make that a lower amount. You might help me, Ron, what's the city do?
The city's bid limits less at the state level than ours.
Yeah.
Irrigation district's 300. I believe the city is maximum like 80.
But there's a couple variables there because it doesn't apply across the board.
Yeah,
So that's why I said, I don't recall.
that's why I'm asking for that to be a discussion issue and perhaps working on getting a resolution so we all know when you want your manager to take it to a public bid, when you want it to be to the roster in terms of and when you would just through ideology want it to a public bid. I think we should have a resolution that addresses our work rosters, also the public bidding process. That way we'll know ahead of time. I mean, you'll know what you're doing.
Right.
So that, I just wanted to correct that from the last meeting.
Any other, Larry, do you have any more input you wanted to?
Good job.
There's nothing further, then we'll call the meeting adjourned.
Just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed our time together, and I appreciate your input, and
Overly high expectations. I do. Make progress. That's good.
That's right.
After the meeting, I wanted to congratulate, Sure, whatever. You guys got done in record time, and I went, yeah, this is great. I was home before 9 o'clock. Surprised. What were you guys?
Well, as always, a surprise here with the MLIRD. You never quite know when it's going to be adjourned. So we're going to go ahead and cut to commercial, and then we will be back with some post-show. You know, we got an hour scheduled here, so we'll see if we can't pull together some interviews and be able to share some of that inside thoughts of some of these directors before they take off. So Cody, if hearing us while we go ahead and get set for that. We're going to go ahead and cut to commercial now. Thank you for watching iFIBERONE. You've just been able to view the MLIRD meeting. It was a continued meeting, is how Mick put it, although it seemed like the last meeting was adjourned. But either way, we'll be going to commercial for just a couple minutes. We'll be right back from a word from our sponsors.
For all those who don't know, Broadway Bar and Grill, located at 302 West Broadway, is the spot to be every night of the week. Monday through Wednesday night karaoke, Thursday night ladies, it's all for you. Drink specials and a DJ. Friday night live music, blues, rock to heavy metal, and on Saturday nights, come get down with Big Daddy DJ Live and the official Corona party at Broadway Bar and Grill, 302 West Broadway in Moses Lake. Don't forget, we have great food, open breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Hi, I'm Mark Fancher at Caldwell Banker Tomlinson Ranch and Home. It's still a good time to sell your home, provided you have the right agent. In today's market, it's more important than ever to have the right agent help you sell your home. And at Caldwell Banker Tomlinson Ranch and Home, you'll find sales associates who know how to market your home, help you with the right price, and maximize its curb appeal. Your home is probably the most important asset. Call Caldwell Banker Tomlinson Ranch and Home at 509-766-0300 today.